Although it might seem the other way around, writing for children is much more difficult than writing for adults. Children's literature has rules that literature in general does not have and must always be taken into account. It is difficult to find the balance between a fascinating story, simple language, short sentences, well-defined characters, not falling into clichés and not underestimating the reader. Something that children's authors understand very well is that children are not dumb. They are children, and their heads, still untamed, work differently. There are few writers who address their works to both children and adults. Some of them are very well known, such as Oscar Wilde. In any case, here we will explore the curious cases of some authors, well known for their adult fiction, who have dedicated one or more works, yet obscure, to children's audiences. Some of them are really surprising. Best known for works such as The Name of the Rose, the Italian Umberto Eco wrote the Three Cosmonauts, whose reading invites us to reflect on aspects of discrimination. It is a short adventure of three astronauts from three different countries, United States, Russia and Africa, who travel to Mars and, when confronted with what they find there, understand some aspects of discrimination. Why do we do it? Under what circumstances? How do we do it? How can we find things that bring us together? The author of For Whom the Bell Tolls and The Old Man and the Sea also has two children's stories that are published together, The Good Lion and The Faithful Bull. In both of them, Ernest Hemingway reflects on lies, kindness and love as a force that drives us to survive. They are written in the fashion of a fable and are really quite interesting. James Joyce is best known as a poet, playwright, short story writer, and novelist. But in an August 10, 1936 letter to his grandson, Stephen, Joyce planted the seeds of what became The Cat and the Devil, a charming children's illustrated book about a cat with a moral dilemma. The story tells the tale of the bridge at Beaugency, an ancient little village on one bank of the Loire, which is the longest river in France. It also teaches the love of cats and the importance of kindness. English author Virginia Woolf. Best known for her profound fictions, Orlando, and On the Waves, also has a proper children's story, The Widow and the Parrot. Its main character is a widow who inherits from her late brother an old house, where he used to live. Among other possessions, inside the house she finds an ill-tempered parrot, who eventually helps the old woman to find a hidden treasure, while they reconcile their differences. Indian-British novelist Salman Rushdie has been widely acclaimed and controversial for his literary works. But in 1990, he turned his talents to children's literature with the publication of Haroun and the Sea of Stories, a whimsical allegory of a handful of social and social justice issues, especially in India, explored through the young protagonist, Haroun, and his father's narration. One of the book's surprises is the unpacking of the meanings and symbolism of the extensive cast of character names, an intriguing linguistic and semantic bridge to Indian culture. William Faulkner, a prolific writer of novels and short stories, only wrote one book for children, The Wishing Tree, which Maria Popova calls a kind of somberly whimsical moral tale, somewhere between Alice in Wonderland, Don Quixote, and To Kill a Mockingbird, about a little girl who embarks on a strange adventure on her birthday only to realize the importance of choosing one's wishes with thoughtfulness and kindness. Faulkner lovingly illustrated and beautifully bound this book for a little girl, an acquaintance of his, who was the daughter of the love of his life. Aldous Huxley is an example that catches you off guard. Alongside the first edition of his dystopian classic, Brave New World, is a vibrant picture book called The Crows of Pear Blossom, illustrated by Sophie Blackall and published in 2011. Written in 1944 for her niece Olivia, the story features a clever pair of crows whose egg keeps disappearing until they set out to find the thief. T.S. Eliot is often considered the most important English-language poet of the 20th century. In the 1930s, Eliot, under his pseudonym Old Possum, wrote a series of letters to his godchildren, in which he included a handful of quirky poems on feline psychology and sociology. They were finally published in 1939 as Old Possum's Practical Book of Cats, originally illustrated by the author himself. The American writer of novels, poetry and theater, Gertrude Stein is considered a pioneer of modernist literature. Her work generated a new form of narrative that broke with the temporal conventions of the 19th century. She devoted much of her time to her children's book, The World is Round, in which she narrates the adventures of a little girl named Rose. It is a whimsical tale that delights the reader with its play on words and sounds, while exploring the concepts of identity and selfhood. For the publication of this book, the author expressly requested that the pages were colored in pink and the illustrations in blue. Editions in this format can be found nowadays. Interest in Sylvia Plath has been focused on her personal tragedy, on her heartbreak, on the way she died and, to be fair, on her outstanding poetry. However, the fact that she also wrote 2 books for children is rarely mentioned, No Matter the Costume, and The Book of Beds, as well as another story, Mrs. Cherry's Kitchen, which was later compiled with the first 2. Although published later, the bed book was written first. In it she describes various beds that are much more interesting than beds for sleeping, such as a bed with jet propulsion, a bed for snacking, a pocket bed, and a bed that bounces, and so on. We could mention a number of other authors, but the ones listed here are the ones who, in my opinion, strongly contrast the style with which we know them and their brilliance as children's authors. Undoubtedly, one never gets to know the good authors, and it is wonderful when they surprise us with stories for children that are both entertaining and profound.